Well, the future's a mystery, but what's new in history? I'm with our guest today. Dean Kinzer is here again, who we love to have. I love to have him anyway, and you're going to have to get used to him, guys, because he's great. And today, our topic is how coins became the first social media, propaganda, power, and storytelling in the ancient world. So him and I were sort of talking before we podcast. This is going to be cool. I'm going to still read the subtitle that what we wrote here.
Yeah.
A fascinating look at how ancient civilizations used coins to spread messages, build trust, and shape their image. It's pretty interesting, right? And long before modern media. Let's go. Hello, Dean.
Hello. Thanks for having me back. I've really enjoyed our first conversation, and I love talking about it. And I'm glad that we get the opportunity again. And this is a great subject because in ancient times, the most rapid way to get your message from one corner of the globe to the other was coinage. If you think about all of the different technology advances that we have in over time, none of that existed back then.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about, and if you watch the HBO series Rome, they do a very good example of that. Every time the emperor had a decree or something like that, he'd have almost like a town crier. I'm not sure what they would call that position in ancient Rome, but he would communicate the message out. And a lot of that would be telephoned and then disappear into history. But coinage represented the emperor's message and how it reached farther than the town crier ever could dream of.
That's amazing. I never would have thought that. Like, I bet you most people just thinking, well, maybe they wrote it on paper and they sent out notes or things like that, but
no, that's
not really.
That's from the very beginning, right? So if we talk about Croesus, right, he's our turning point in ancient history. He really kind of formalized state-run coinage and where there was value to. We talked about the globs and stuff like that from before, and that's not necessarily state-run. Croesus did use that as state form, and so when he printed on his coins the lion and the bull, which is kind of his trademark for Lydia, he was not only sending the message of the lion and the bull, but he was also sending a message that this coinage is from Lydia and you can trust it. And because Lydia was so important at the time, that was the communication. And so a lot of these city-states in ancient Greece kind of looked at that as an opportunity for them to send a message beyond. Even the Achaemenids, the Persians used that. They definitely, on their derrick, which came after the Lydian coinage, they had a king or the king of kings, right?
Yeah.
On one knee, pulling back an arrow. It's not just to say that, we have soldiers, but it's to say that there's strength in our Persian government.
Right.
And we're representing that.
Yeah, and Darius would definitely be a guy who would do that, I think, for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's also kind of a method of control, right? It's a way of understanding that, hey, there's somebody in charge and it's beyond. And if you think about what it was like before that, how did you get that message? How could really I guess the bigger question is, how could an empire exist before you could have mass communication? Right.
It's funny you say, because so in our podcast, and if anybody listens to the regular episodes, we counted from 1000 BC forward, and the Assyrians were like kind of a major empire for a few years. Well, a few years of the podcast, a couple hundred years in history. But Syria was only about as big as Spain.
Yeah.
That's not really huge. And one thing that they did, I remember that they did in Assyria, was you had to always come to see the emperor to check on his health, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So that's how they kind of had intelligence to know what was happening around.
That's
and
right.
Also to tell you what they wanted you to do. But yeah, because the Assyrians didn't. Well, the Assyrians did. Okay, one thing they did do was they had the Esarhaddon's succession treaty. And they did. And that would have been a difficult thing to do. And we have a bunch of them. They made about 12. I think we have like 12 of them or something. They put them in temples all around in their empire. But that's a lot harder than to distribute thousands and thousands of coins.
But yeah,
But people want to trade, you know? And then those things, when it was over, like when the Syrian Empire was over, they're all smashed because everybody hated them.
That's
Right.
right.
But you weren't going to smash those coins.
No. I mean, you could try, like the Romans in a lot of cases tried to make history disappear by melting down or scratching off names and stuff like that, but it still persists even to this day. Even the smallest known emperor from, the third century crisis still has coinage around. There's not one emperor where you can't, even Constantine the 11th, one of the most desperate periods, the end of the Roman Empire in 1453. He minted coins. He was so desperate he had the Genovese protectors, and he had to pay those guys. And so he took all of the silver that was available inside of the Hagia Sophia, melted it down, and then issued it as coinage to those guys. Those coins still exist in some form. There are a number of those that still exist, even though, Constantinople at the time was probably, 10,000 people or 50,000 people, much smaller than it had been.
Yeah.
But he still minted those coins to get the soldiers paid. And his history, even though they were, overcome, that history still exists. So even the most irrelevant emperor still survives to this day. And that's pretty powerful. But
sure,
as we're talking about, like, the Assyrians, I like talking about that, and the Hittites and some of the older, but really, a lot of their communication was in stone, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of like the Egyptians, they put up, blocks or something like that, so you can understand a little bit of what's going on. But that's still not the greatest form of education.
No, it's only one spot.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that kind of took form because Greece, the many city states, we talk about Athens, we talk about some of the other places, Sparta, which of course did things totally different. But all of those different places had to legitimize or make their coins valuable. And so obviously, we've talked about this a little bit on the last episode, but the city states took that very seriously to make their coinage the most important. So on the obverse, generally, they would have some kind of area that would reflect, some kind of god or image that would reflect their area. And then on the back, they would have the magistrate. And then another city symbol or something like that. And that's to show, again, just like Croesus did, that there is power and strength in this money, that we have great artisans and craftsmen that can make this stuff. And it can portray us outwardly as a strong nation or city-state at that point. And then, obviously Rome took that and ran with that. And really the denarius over time is probably one of the most interesting coins. Really because of a lot of different reasons, but they had a bunch of different moneyers, right? Moneyr was a elected position in the Roman hierarchy. And so you would take that kind of like what's it called, a lawyer position or a aedile or a keystor or something like that. That's a regular position. And so they would have, I think at the time, 3 moneyers. And each one of them would represent something different on the back of their coins. Now, early on, it started out very heavy with Roma. And so there was always a quadriga with Roma underneath to kind of identify that these are Roman coins. But as they started to develop and as history started to kind of take form, these moneyers started using this as an expression of either their family's heritage, the region they're from, or something that ties into what's important about the moneyr himself and what's important about the coinage. And then, of course, as we get a little more serious, taking away the republic and kind of the guardrails that are around that, the coinage started to expand to having thoughts about, who is in charge and who is more important. And it really escalated in the 50s and 40s BC with Julius Caesar His elephant coin is probably one of the most known coins in history. There is a lot of them. It's actually an affordable coin. But he minted that in 49 BC to represent his power and his authority. And a lot of people think that the snake that the elephant is stepping on represents Pompey.
Okay.
And so now you have coinage kind of deciding who's in charge or what side are you on. And then it gets way more intricate as the imperatorial times happen, 49, 48, 47 BC. It becomes very, very interesting. They start kind of labeling, or dictating what the storyline is to people and who is winning. And that was important. And Julius
in
Caesar,
coins.
yeah.
Wow.
There are so many different reverse types on denarius coins, and that's because they would mint a fresh coin and put something on the reverse that meant something. Augustus, I think, if you look at his coins, there is something like 500 different obverses on Augustus coins. He was somebody who was very image conscious. So a picture of Augustus at 25 looks like the image of Augustus at 70.
Okay.
Very image conscious. I'm
He
young.
reminds me of other politicians.
I'm young, I'm powerful, I'm strong. And then he would often use the reverse as a way to show, one, we're at peace, so there would often be pacts, or they would have a cornucopia on the reverse to show that there was food, that they were strong in, even in some of the tougher times, particularly after Julius Caesar died and things got really hard in Rome, showing that there's still capabilities and power to feed people was something important, and that they represented on coinage. And then after Augustus, basically most of the messaging out of Rome was propaganda on the back of the coins. We defeated this guy. Like Trajan, we defeated Parthia, and there's a standard, right? Augustus did it too. We got the standards back that Crassus lost, right? And there's a Parthian on the reverse handing the standard. Even though there was no combat, there was no fight, the Parthians just in an agreement gave it back.
Yeah.
But on the reverse of the coin, there's a Parthian kneeling, right? So what does
politicians
that say?
Exaggerated back then. What a shock.
Yeah.
And people fell for it.
That's right. But if you think,
so nothing changes.
Yeah, I often wonder what a Roman actually thought of the leadership of Augustus and how much they actually knew about what was going on at the time. Augustus really did a nice job of erasing a lot of the sins that he had as a young man.
Yeah.
He did a lot of terrible things from like 42 to 30 BC.
Yeah.
And that kind of disappeared because food got better and all that kind of stuff. And he's a perfect example of somebody who reinvigorated his image through coinage.
So it's like so interesting now. So you think, because you would think with our modern mind, like how could coins, be like how would you know when they come out, right? Because if they released a new penny, of course we have other media. Of course we could look and see if somebody had a sandwich, and we could watch them on their social media. And nobody made sandwiches, right? On there saying, "Oh, I had a sandwich today." Look what I did. It's my birthday. But in all seriousness, I mean, so we would think like a coin. How would you get a coin out? Because, well, we don't change ours very much, obviously.
No.
So I guess my question is, how often did they change them, and then why? So like, it would seem like then the coins that were already put out maybe weren't in circulation as much right away. Is that?
Yeah.
Because to put a new coin out for like information, it would have to be sort of everybody have to get a new coin.
Well, it just depends on what the need is, right? A lot of the coinage was to fund battles or soldiers, so they had to constantly mint new coinage. They would create new dies based on what the soup of the day was, but a lot of times they would turn and burn these coins just to get the message out and pay the soldiers.
When the new ones come, so they would. So instead of just recirculating ones that were already circulating, like we do now, you would just get them all and just whatever you could, and then melt them all and then make new ones.
Yeah.
So that was also. So you're saying that a lot of the reason for that was for the point of getting out a message.
Yeah.
Because they could have simply just used the old coins, right?
Right. But yeah, and there are instances in history where certain coins lasted quite a bit of time. I think I've mentioned Mark Antony's galley coins lasted for like 200 years. Obviously, you're going to get one of those in 200 AD and be a little, it's obviously not the current message. But there was certainly a lot of silver coming out from Hadrian and Marcus Aurelius and stuff like that still going, right? So there was plenty of silver in that environment, particularly as Rome controlled a lot of the silver mines. Silver was very strong for them, and so until it wasn't, but they definitely turned and burned a lot of coins. And then, of course, as time went on, silver kind of turned into bronze, but the messaging does not change, right? The messaging, oftentimes, and I feel bad because I don't have a good Roman example right in front of me. But like, this is a coin of Trajan, and it's not going to be very obvious. Okay. You can't see it. On the back is, you can't see it very well because of the lighting, but on the back is a Trajan's column. Okay. So he's celebrating his column. Still exists to this day, but he's celebrating his victory. But around the obverse, the emperor's head, he would list his accomplishments, and a lot of them are in short form or acronyms. Okay. So his position, a lot of times, the senior Augustus, right? So they would call themselves Augustus. If they were consul, which a lot of times they would give away consul, and a lot of times they would keep it. They would tell you how many years they've been consul. If they were Pontifex Maximus, it would say PF. If they were in charge of the church, which oftentimes they were. And each one of those would kind of outline, people would understand, similar to the, the British pound or some of the British coins where the king is on the obverse and it surrounds and it explains who's in power and why. And so that was a great way of showing on the obverse, I'm in charge. I am the person that is responsible for all of these things. Now, in certain times, it must have been confusing because a lot of different coins have a lot of different emperors. And as they get further along, the obverses start to look all the same. So a lot of the emperors, as they get into the 4th century and the 5th century, a lot of the emperors would start to look the same, and the artistry is not as good. But always. And I really think that whoever thought of that idea is like the first internet, right? How can you mint something in London and it end up, or in Londonum back then, and it end up in like Syria or something like that? How can you possibly get that message out? How could somebody in Britain tell somebody in Syria something? But they did.
They must have sit around and I could just see how the idea came. It was like, well, how can I get this across? Well, I need somebody to carry it. And what we're going to carry? Oh, well, if we make a bunch of coins. Yeah. And, it makes me think, too. So I'm in the promotional products business, which, you make like pens and crap and logos and stuff on it. So that's essentially like the first promotional product, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Because it's a really good, because promotional products are supposed to be useful. And there's probably nothing more useful than money, because you could use it for anything.
That's right. That's
like literally money you could use for anything.
That's right.
So I'm going to give you money with my logo on it, essentially. With my message is what promotional. We got my logo and my message, right? So I'm going to keep it. It's going to stay around. I'm going to keep looking at it, and it's going to, how many impressions am I going to get?
Right.
Literally, it's an impression on a thing, but how many impressions? So every time I look at it, or someone else gets it. So it's like a social media and a promotional product.
That's right. And they went with what works, right? So Alexander the Great, obviously conquered the world, or the known world at the time. But his coins continued on long past his life.
That was because he was such a flash in the pan in life, and then it was so like a god almost to humans, almost like a Hercules.
And so how did the Diadochi, the surviving guys who were trying to fight over his empire, how did they tell people that they were still beholden to Alexander's idea and vision is to use his face? And his coinage now is later, it got a little different, but his coinage always says of Alexander, whether it's Alexander or it's Ptolemy the First. As Seleucus, I think, is one of the first guys to really put his name as not as Alexander. But that coinage with Alexander's face and Zeus Ammon on the reverse lasted until what, like 150 BC, 200 years after he was around. And because people trusted that obverse, people trusted, and they believed that the Hellenistic Empire would survive, continuously, and that's how you would have faith in their coinage.
So cool. I also have
Yeah.
another question. I don't know if it's completely directed as of a social media thing, but it made me think. So, like, especially going back to the beginning, when there was lots more coins. The Roman Empire didn't have that sort of thing. There was all these cities.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Anyway, like I'm going to go to Barcelona in a couple of weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at the exchange, and I was like, "Oh crap, the exchange is terrible now." Was there an exchange rate between? Was it was like now it's just a euro and the dollar, and there's all these other monies, but it's not that complicated anymore. Even when I was young, I backpacked Europe, and everywhere I went, I had to change my money. So I'm just going to assume they didn't have to change money.
It depends. I mean, like Egypt was really closed off. They did not want outsiders' money.
Okay.
And then certain places like Tyre, right? I mean, the Hebrew temple, they had a specific type that they were after. But a lot of coinage changed a lot of hands, right? Until Rome became this big empire, a lot of their provinces minted their own coinage. And so that would be kind of in competition with or used locally rather than globally. But yeah, I mean, that's really the interesting point is that you gotta really carve it up. You really gotta look for what was I gonna say? You gotta really show people what you're talking about on these coins.
Okay. So if I was say in like Athens, or let's say I was in a small city and I had a coin and I went to another city with my coin. Yeah. So in general, could I a lot of times buy something with that coin, or would I have to go change it and get another coin?
I mean, everybody had essentially kind of weight standards.
Okay.
So a lot of Greeks followed the Athens weight standard.
Okay.
And so they would measure based on that, and they would either test cut the coinage to make sure that the silver was good, but they'd weigh it. So yeah, a lot of transferring, a lot of counter stamps. That's a really interesting part of ancient coins. As coins traveled, especially from distant places, they would counter stamp them and call them good locally. So some of the coinage of, let's say, and I don't want to use Egypt as an example, but if you had a Ptolemy, it might have gone from Egypt up to Byzantium, modern day Istanbul, right? And so you might get a stamp of Byzantium saying, yes, that we verify this is a good money, and there would forever be a countermark on that coin that would identify where it was good locally.
Oh, so then in Byzantium, I can use it around and around and around. So I might come into Byzantium. Was there some of them have official offices, I guess? Would I come in like I'm a trader? You don't know.
That I don't know.
I don't know. It's interesting. I'm terrible asking the craziest questions.
Well, no, but I mean, that one of the, I guess one of the more interesting areas of collecting is counter stamps. It's just you can follow the trace history of a coin through that. Now they're not as common as you might think, but they're around and people do collect them.
And how big is a counter stamp? So was it something small in the back?
No, usually they put it on the obverse. And it was small. And a lot of times it had a symbol representing where it was from.
Okay.
A lot of those symbols I don't think are understood at this point. So there's a lot of questions about them, but some are more identifiable and understood where they specifically come from.
Well, maybe we could get 1 million views if we make a conspiracy theory about those symbols.
Yeah. Well,
that's what people like.
I can see them lining up for the counter stamp.
The thing you didn't know about counter stamps came from aliens. Only real history here, everybody.
That's
Just
right.
kidding.
That's right.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, that is so interesting. It's just you don't think of it, It's like the way I look at it is it's like a social media and a promotional product in one. That nobody could think of. I don't think back then. I don't think 100 years ago. I don't think 50 years ago anybody would have thought of the instant communication with a social media.
No, yeah. Yeah. I mean, after Al Gore invented the internet, it's been a while.
It's true. But I guess, it's, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Well, I'll cut that out. Hate when I do that.
That's all right. That's what's the fun about podcasting is
we could cut it out.
It's all kind of on the spot. As it went further into time, I would say that the idea of propaganda changed, right? So maybe the Romans and the emperors were kind of secondary to religion. So if we're using the Roman Empire as an example, particularly the Eastern Roman Empire, they started minting coins with Christ on them, on the obverse, and then they would put the emperor on the reverse with, maybe they have their wife or whatever, but to show that they are tied directly to God. And that's, they have been given the divine right to be emperor. And in particular, the Eastern Roman Empire obviously had their own version of what they call the head of the religion, different than the Pope.
Okay.
But that's how you identified your standing in Christianity, was to make sure that you had Christ on the obverse of your coin. So that he gave you that, power, and he shared.
So they were minting coins pretty often, like every year, a couple times a year, just all the time. Not like today. We don't even think we haven't changed. Like, when's the quarter changed?
I think every year, right? Every year.
The quarter? Yeah, but it's the same. It's the same design.
Oh, yeah.
They put a new year on it, but they don't change. It's like a big deal. And also what makes it's really interesting, I guess, a comparison we wouldn't have thought about it is like today, I don't know about other countries, but in America, in the United States, everybody's dead who's on a coin.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be dead already.
So
you can't use it for propaganda.
They definitely stole that from the Romans, right?
Okay.
They don't want, or I don't think they've ever wanted to have a current president or leader on a coin, right? Because I think that crosses the Julius Caesar line of, is he an emperor? Is he a dictator? Is he an emperor? Is he a god? Kind of thing. And I think that's really I think we've kind of followed that. I don't know that was as intentional as I'm making it, but a lot of the, our early history is kind of a little bit based in Greco-Roman,
oh, for sure.
Yeah. In their laws and, that kind of stuff. So it wouldn't be totally out of the realm of possibility that it was, decided that they wouldn't do that. And quite frankly, as an American, I probably would not, be into that. If obviously that would make the coinage theirs. Kind of like.
I mean, I'm trying to be good here, but I'm just wondering if there was anything to do with cryptocurrency or gold coins that are sort of issued. I just can't stay the same.
I have what's it called here? This is a Justinian coin.
Okay.
Justinian the First, one of the most important leaders in history. And for a period of time, the Byzantines made these giant bronzes, and they're really satisfying and very affordable. It could be had for $100, this giant coin. But anyway, on the obverse is Justinian, and it has the legend around it of all of the titles that he has. And then on the reverse, he has where it was minted, Constantinople, year of our Lord, and he has the year of his reign. So you can tell, kind of similar to today, you can tell what year the coin was minted by the year of his reign on the back of the coin. And that's one of the neat things about the Byzantine coins, is that they did kind of track the years, where a lot of cases, it's hard to know when that came from.
Oh, right.
If you look at a coin, it's hard to see what year it would be, especially with, a lot of the Greek bronzes and stuff like that. You see so many of them, and it's hard to know what era they came from. But even the Byzantines kind of came up with some creative ways. The other thing that the Byzantines did, which I think I don't know enough about, but there is a period of time where the Byzantines created what they call cup coinage.
Hmm.
And so they're real thin. I think they were a mixture, an alloy of, I think, electrum or a light gold. But anyway, they would stamp the coin so much that it turned into a cup. And then you
Huh.
could stack up the coins into like
Oh,
this cup thing, which was an interesting experiment. I wonder, I don't know enough to know why specifically they came up with that idea. But that's a very interesting coin. You can buy those very like $25, $50, and
really?
they're cup coins, and they'll have Christ on the obverse, and then they'll have some emperor like Andronicus II or some terrible emperor on the reverse, showing their power or whatever. But yeah, the Byzantines kind of created a lot of interesting coins over their, I guess, 1,000-year history, being a part of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, I tell you, man, it is so. I never would have thought of it that way. I'm still on that. It's a social media and a promotional product all at once. It's
Yeah,
something funny how so many things are different. Like we still have coins, since they were invented, right, in 600 BC or
yeah,
whatever,
that's
whenever they
right.
were. I mean,
Yeah,
that's like a chain that's not been broken
that's
all
right.
along, right? Like we invented it back then. People are still using about the same size. You know
Yep.
what I mean? It's
Yeah,
not like
that's
that
right.
much different. It's sort of a thing, but it's so different how they're used.
Right,
It's
right.
like such a whole different thing. You don't realize it as the way they were used, like you said, is that.
Yeah, it's more of a store of wealth, or obviously transactional, bigger transactions, not necessarily the smaller ones, unless you're the ovals. But yeah, the same thought process, but kind of a different intention, right?
Yeah, and then
Uh,
just the fact of as a propaganda tool.
Well, I mean, think about like Marius and Sulla, right? Marius is, considered one of the most important people in kind of the transition from the Republic to Empire. And one of the main things he did was create loyalty, right, in the army.
Oh,
And
is that how
and
it converts? You skip. So the precursor is somebody who really wants a lot of loyalty.
yeah,
Just wondering.
so um, the soldiers started becoming loyal to the generals in his, I think, and Sulla followed that. They became enemies at the time, but there was a period of time where like the Marsic Marius Confederation minted coins. And then Sulla, when he was consul, he minted coins. But again, I think a more of a kind of, hey, this is serious. This is what this means. It's not necessarily um, we're minting these coins and distributing them to soldiers to let you know who's in charge, right? And that's
Yeah,
that's a big deal. I mean, before that, that was not there was no single onus of somebody being in charge. It was several different, or it was a god, right? So the gods are in charge, and it's a very different translation to kind of what money is now, right?
that's a good transition because I think maybe we have another talk you have already. Maybe that's our next talk. We'll talk about gods and myths and different things on the coins like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's obviously one of the most standoutish part of ancient coins is that you know cities states had gods, right, that were local to them or that were important to them, and kind of as a unifying force. Tyche is a goddess that is often used on certain coins from a region, and is associated with that region's local beliefs. And so they would represent those gods to outwardly to the public, so that one, you can identify what the coinage is from, but then two, who are we, right?
Oh,
And so
sure. Give a little glory to their god and to tell who
that's
they are.
right. That's
Well, let's
right.
save our thunder for the next one for that, I think. And I
Yeah.
and I think I would like to talk next time too about I read an article, I think I sent it to you, and maybe, if you think.
Oh yeah.
And it was, somebody sort of posited that there must have been always some sort of means of exchange besides just a goat or a chicken.
Right. Right. Right.
So I
Yeah.
wonder, maybe we'll
What
look into that.
I did put out a little post about the Mesopotamians. So there's proto-coinage, right? There is
Okay.
proto-coinage that you can buy, that is not necessarily it's not necessarily silver or gold. A lot of times it's bronze. But there was there's shell money from I think it's Syracuse or Sicily.
Okay.
There was shell money that was There's also these dolphin money, I think. But there is proto money, or NFTs, as you might describe them.
Oh, NFTs. All right. All right. So the next time we'll talk about NFTs. Let's save our
That's right.
thunder. I think that's great. You are the best. These are so
I
interesting
appreciate
points. I need to study more on. Get all the information from you, so I'm so lazy. I come on the show, and Dean just tells me everything. I have a couple questions, and then boom, he tells me. I usually try to get some. You have it all. I mean, you got all the information.
I'm
So
trying. I mean,
you're doing good.
I start to get fuzzy, but I try my best. I'm sure that people, if I make mistakes, I encourage people to always point out the mistakes, because nobody's infallible, and it's hard to remember 2,000 years of history.
Yes.
So you might make a mistake, but generally, I'm trying my best to get it as accurate as possible.
Yeah, me too. So you could let me know if I make
Yeah,
mistakes as well. In a nice, kind way.
whatsoever.
We're kind people. So yeah, man. Well, thank you. I really enjoyed it again, as usual.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have a lot more episodes to do. So you guys, let us know what you think. And if you guys I know that Dean published a YouTube video last time, and I've been trying to sit still for this one. I've never really been on a YouTube video, and I noticed I was quite fidgety.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to sit still. So
Did you get your haircut for this one?
I did. I especially got my hair cut for this episode.
Good.
So, all right, man. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to.
Oh, what's your? We'll put in the show notes, but check out Dean's website, of course.
Yeah.
Right, and you have
Kinzercoins.com.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Say it again.
www.kinzercoins.com. And
that's right.
Ancient Coin Hour podcast. Both are my little babies.
Excellent. I'll put them in the show notes. And for my listeners, if you send me an email at zimwaypodcast@gmail.com. Sorry, forgot that for a second. zimwaypodcast@gmail.com. I will send you some free stickers if you want them. Awesome. Send me your address. I'll send you some free stickers too.
Absolutely, I will. I appreciate that.
All right. Cheers, Dean, and cheers, everybody.
Thank you so much, Bernie.
All right. Bye.